Hi folks, welcome to Greg's Workshop. I'm Greg and today we're going to be talking about Milwaukee M18 circular saws. The first Milwaukee tool I ever bought was this M18 rear handle circular saw, 7¼ inch blade, 12 amp hour battery. It's a beast, it works great. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. What I really want to talk about in this video is this little guy. 6½ inch blade, M18 Fuel. Use this enough on the shed build that I think I can give a good review on it. So let's take a quick look at the saw. It looks like sawdust on it. It's actually overspray. I got a little bit of paint overspray on it when I was building the shed, but it's been used. So I use this saw almost exclusively for cutting the lumber of the shed, other than I use the miter saw a little bit. So let's talk about it. 6½ inch blade. I put on a Diablo, I think 34 tooth blade, so not exactly aggressive, but not super fine. I use mostly the 3.0 high output battery. That worked great. Lasts quite a few cuts, more than you think it would. Over here, rafter hook. That worked just like it should. Little table depth adjustment here. It's hard to see if I can show that on camera. Right in this area, you can see the depth adjustments for how deep you're going to be cutting. On the front, of course, have our tilt. Goes all the way to 50 degrees. On the bottom, little adjustment screw, and actually most saws have this, little Allen screw so you can true it up, get it exactly 90 to the foot. Switches up here. Safety switch, you have to push this one down first. See that? Before you can activate it. So what do I like about it? I like that it's lightweight. I like that I can use it one-handed. It has a 90-degree depth of cut of 2 3/16 inches, which is enough for me. That'll get you just about all the way through a 4x4 if you cut both sides. At 45 degrees, it has a depth of cut of 1 5/8, which works fine too. I used this for a couple long rip cuts, like 14-foot long rip cuts on the shed, and it just powered right through and did great. Downsides to the saw, well, number one, there's no dust collection, so you won't be able to hook a hose up to it. Number two, this is just sort of an odd pet peeve. So this is reverse threaded. You turn it to the right to loosen it, and turn it to the left to tighten it. It makes sense from the sense of how it's used and how it's working, but it just kind of took my brain a little bit to get around that righty-tighty, lefty-loosey part. Other thing that's not real great is this safety feature. It works fine. I think it's appropriate. The thing is that if I'm cutting in kind of a weird angle, I can kind of block it with my hand. You know, if I'm cutting at a weird angle, I have to kind of move my hand and hold it loosely to push that down before I pull the trigger. Now, having said all that, let's do some cutting.
Cutting up my old concrete forms to use to build potato towers. Gonna grow a bunch of potatoes this summer.
So let's compare and contrast these two saws. First, the 6½ inch, empty weight, 6.8 pounds. With the 3.0 battery, it's 1.3 pounds. If you want to do a 6 battery, obviously it's a little bit heavier, but I think the 3.0 is just right for this saw. This one, 10 pounds empty, 3.4 pounds for the 12.0 battery, 13.4 altogether. One of the things I don't really like about this is it almost requires a two-handed operation. You know, it balances on the forward handle, not on the pistol grip. This takes a lot of strain on your wrist and your forearm. This one, easy enough. Balanced more or less right where the trigger is. You can just one-hand it, do what you need to do. Where does the rear handle outshine the 6.5? Well, depth of cut, obviously. This one at 90 degrees will cut 2.5 inches deep. 45 will cut 1 7/8 inches. This one, 90 degrees, 2 3/16 inch. 45 degrees, 1 5/8 inches. It's enough for 2x material. It'll cut through a 4x4 on both halves pretty close, depending on how wide it is. This one, obviously, you can just use it for all sorts of heavy duty use. Also, dust collection. You can see there's a dust port on this one. There's no dust port on this one. If I were doing long rip cuts in the shop, which I've done, with this saw, this would be better, just because I can put dust collection on it. Now that I have a track saw, it's kind of a moot point, so it doesn't really matter to me. So let's talk about blade changes. On the 6.5, you have this bolt with an Allen head socket in here. Allen wrench, conveniently stored on the back. This one, you have the same bolt with the same Allen socket, except on this one we have a wrench stored under here. How easy is the blade change on the 6.5? First step, safety first, remove the battery. Next, there's a blade lock right in here. Push that down, rotate the blade until it locks. There we are. This has a righty loosey, lefty tighty screw because of the left-handled blade, left side blade rather. The whole thing lifts right out. Super easy. Put it back in as the reverse. Slide that on. You don't need to do any knockout. Just thread that back in. Tighten her up. Big saw is basically the same. Blade lock right here. I'm going to spin the blade. Hey, look at that. I already got it in the lock position. This time we use a wrench instead of an Allen wrench. Oop. It's a little bit harder. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier. A little more awkward, I think, with that wrench. Important to note, this one uses the diamond knockout, so you will have to knock out the blade to put it on the rear-handled saw. So what's my overall opinion? They're both great saws. I love them both. Difference is that for me, this one is better. It's lighter weight. I don't cut big heavy timbers. I don't do a lot of framing. If I was a professional framer, I'd go this way. For me, just being a homeowner and hobbyist and YouTuber, I'm going to go with the 6.5 all day long. So that's what I think of these two saws. Do you have one or both of these saws? What do you think? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Folks, if you enjoyed that video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to get notified of new videos every Saturday morning. Leave a comment or ask a question down below, and I'll see you next week on Greg's Workshop.